Hello and welcome to a special interview with the British Foreign Secretary. How does Britain view the standoff between India and Pakistan, and beyond that, how does it view the scourge of terrorism? Those are the two key issues I should explore today with David Miliband. Foreign Secretary, let's start with the India-Pakistan standoff in the wake of the Mumbai terror strike. The Indian government has given a dossier to your government containing the information or the evidence that it's collected. What's your assessment of the contents of that dossier?
Well, we are in absolutely no doubt about the origins of the attack in Mumbai in November. Those origins are in Pakistan, and there have been some detentions in Pakistan, and they now need to lead to successful prosecutions. We believe the evidence is there for that.
You used a very important word just now. You said, we believe the evidence is there. So do you see the dossier as containing evidence?
We have our own evidence, which we have shown to the Pakistani authorities, and we believe that that is the right evidence on which to proceed. The Indian dossier that's been handed over is something obviously that we are looking at. But I think what is critical is that the words of the Pakistani government, which are commitments to follow through on the perpetrators of these terrible crimes, should be followed through into action.
You say you have your own evidence which you've handed to the Pakistani government. What sort of evidence is this?
Well, obviously we don't go into that for a very simple reason. A court case is pending. It needs to take place.
All right. You said that you've made the evidence you have available to the Pakistani government. What response did you get from them?
Well, I think that, as it happens, I was in Pakistan on the day of the Mumbai atrocities, and then subsequently followed up in phone calls, and will be able to follow up in person. We've had some good words from the Pakistani authorities. We've also had the detentions, but that needs to be translated into action, because I know that Indians are sick of words. They don't want words about following up to tackle people who've committed terrorist outrages. They want action, and that's what I support as well.
What sort of action specifically are you looking for?
The action, I think, falls into two categories. There's short-term action to take those against whom there is evidence through the courts to justice, and if they are found guilty, to make sure they're appropriately punished. Secondly, there is a medium-term job, and that is to root out the terrorist networks that pose such a threat, not just to India, but to the fundamentals of the Pakistani state as well. And my message in Pakistan will be, don't just do a favour to Britain, which is threatened by terrorism that starts in Pakistan. Don't just do a favour to India, which is threatened by terrorism that starts in Pakistan. Do a favour to yourselves, because terrorism has already claimed the life of Benazir Bhutto and many other Pakistanis. They need to tackle it for their own good as well as ours.
All right, the Indian Prime Minister has gone on record to say that there is enough evidence to show that the attack must have had the support of some official agencies in Pakistan. Does Britain agree with that?
We don't have evidence to show that the attacks were directed by the Pakistani government. What we do know, and this is public knowledge, is that the Pakistani government has had a policy towards the lashkar-i-toiba under the previous regime of President Musharraf. And I think it's very important that that approach, the so-called corral and engage approach, is one that is changed, because it obviously doesn't work.
The Indian Prime Minister also has said that Pakistan has utilized terrorism as an instrument of state policy. Would you accept that?
I have no evidence of the Pakistani state directing terrorist activities, and I would never make that claim without that evidence. What I know is that Pakistan has a very serious terrorist problem.
But when you spoke about the policy of corralling the puppets, the relationship that existed General Musharraf's time with the LET, what exactly was that relationship?
Well, it was an approach, I think I described it as, and it was an approach which recognized that LET did pose a threat, but also recognized that they had to engage with LET. And I think the important message that comes out, especially since the Mumbai bombings, is that you have to tackle the roots of these terrorist organizations. If they want to play in politics, that's one thing. If they're going to use terrorist tactics, that's beyond the pale, and they need to be rooted out.
When you say approach, is that a euphemism for saying that there were links between the government of Pakistan and General Musharraf's time and the LET?
No. It's an approach is a policy. It's a very clear way of describing it.
A policy whereby the LET was utilized by the state for purposes of the state?
I've been very, very clear in every answer I've given you. We do not have evidence that the Pakistani state directs operations or directed operations by the LET. What is important is that we recognize that terrorism is a threat to Pakistan as well as to its neighbors and to countries like Britain. Secondly, that the roots of terrorism need to be addressed at the root, which are economic and social and political as well as security. And thirdly and importantly, Pakistan needs to address the fundamental political questions if it's to turn itself around.
Okay.
And in the end, India cannot afford a Cold War or a hot war with Pakistan, and Pakistan cannot afford a Cold War or a hot war with India.
And all of that is taken for granted both in India and I assume in Pakistan. But let me therefore pick up on something that you said maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times in this interview. The clear connection of what's happened in Mumbai to Pakistan and to actors in Pakistan. Now, Pakistan has taken some steps. Those are viewed in India as cosmetic. Some people regard them as deceptive. How does the British government view the steps that Pakistan has so far taken?
A start. A start. That's all they are. And you've got experience in this country of people being detained or arrested and then released. In this case, there's a very clear onus on the Pakistani authorities to take the people who've been detained, to assemble the evidence, to use it for prosecution, and then if people are found guilty, to make sure they are properly punished.
Let me put 2 bits of detail to you. You say what Pakistan has done is a start, but India looks at the fact and says that, for instance, the Jamaat-ul-Dawa is supposed to have been banned under decisions and sanctions taken by the United Nations Security Council, and yet the same organization is organizing rallies in Lahore, surrounded and escorted by the Punjab police. Its headquarters are functioning, its flag is fluttering, its armed guards are visible, its weekly is bringing out vituperative articles about India. Is that an effective implementation of the United Nations Security Council?